We are going.
Yeah, I'm covering it up.
It's right on here. Yeah, we got it going.
There you go.
So,
Thank you.
yeah, we got it taken care of. You do not need to continue. Continue on. Thank you. Thank you, guys. Yep.
All right. Is there a link on the website?
Bye.
There must be.
There was, yeah, so, because it's the same link every,
Oh, okay.
it's a recurring meeting, so it's the same link every time.
Thank you, Eric. That's
You're
awesome.
welcome.
I should have called him rather than
You can tell.
texting. He's driving, he's gonna text me the password.
We've already done.
Pardon?
You didn't hear that password, did you?
Oh,
Yeah, we've already done,
Just the last.
to know that, you know, just approval.
Just the last 6
of minutes and
digits?
the payroll.
Yeah, hold on.
I asked them, you guys didn't hear that password, did you? And Gary said, no, just the last 6 digits.
Yes, I think all of us were laughing over here, so we all heard.
All right, let's.
Papers to sign there. For those of you that were finally able to join us, we just finished the consent agenda. Item 4 on our agenda. We're signing the papers now and then we'll move on to public comment.
Anita, is it okay if she stops this recording or do you want that just to keep going?
Well, should be working now. I see eyes, so
And
Well, you
if
mind if
that's recording, it's not just a live view?
Yeah, it
Oh.
said meeting recording.
Okay. Just want to make sure.
I could go
you
look
can
and make
text
sure.
Wendy real quick or somebody to see it or somebody, I don't know.
If they're up there, they.
But it won't tell them if it's recording necessarily.
It usually does
I
say
think
this
it
meeting, this meeting is being recorded.
Yeah.
Please be aware.
it did say it.
It did, okay.
Yeah.
I missed that.
Yeah. Yeah, I noticed it because I was leaning on it.
Make sure that it just. Right. It's recording.
Cause I can pause or stop recording. Oh. Yeah, I just had the mouse over the temperature.
Okay, well, let's go on to public comment then.
I have something. I'm Barbie Zirkle. I was wondering what the process for getting payment for the Suburban.
What was the process for what?
Getting payment for the Suburban, are you guys gonna do?
No, Lisa said she would take care of that. Have you not?
It's in, the lady at the Dell said she emailed an application for an account up there, which I really feel we should have an account with this place since we're getting the motor from them. And but today the lady said she hasn't received anything back. Lisa said she'd check in it tomorrow, but how long does this take?
So,
do you know?
no, so I did not fill out that because I thought that was needed so that we could make the payment. So I contacted Lisa. Lisa said that she could make the payment, no problem. So I
Lisa-
don't know how she was going to do that, but I'm happy to find out the answer to that. And if we need an account there, we can fill it out.
An account would be great, because then if I or somebody else needs to take the Suburban up for work, we don't have to worry about it being paid for before we can bring it back home. So, Lisa was kind of thinking she might be able to put it on the credit card until she realized how much it was costing. Can't put that much on a credit card. So anyway, Lisa's working on it, but I just want to know what the process, if they don't do the account, what's the process for a check?
So the process for a check is Lisa needs an invoice and she can put it in and we will approve it at the next meeting.
Okay, so then our.
So all
Suburban
she
would be
needs
back
is an
until-
invoice and then she will, it'll be in our batch for approval of checks at our next meeting.
Okay, I'm hoping they do an account because I really don't wanna leave the Suburban up at a dealership that isn't all fenced and gated and with all the theft of vehicles.
Well, if we get an account, can't Lisa set up an account
Yeah.
this week, and that way they can get started on the truck here pretty quick.
It's already done.
It's done.
Oh, well,
It's done. All we have
But I
to do is
can't
pay
pick
the
it up
bill so we
until-
could go pick it up.
They have
I was
payment
just gonna,
for,
that nobody saw it. It wasn't on here already, was it?
I didn't,
Cause I,
good. So no matter how we pay for it, we're gonna have it ready.
yeah, we just need to pay for it so she can pick it up, but I don't have any problem doing an account. I didn't
Okay.
realize that was separate for getting it paid for.
yeah, if you set up an account, they will bill you for 30 days out.
And that will really be very, very nice.
Yeah.
That'll work very well. I
Yeah.
just want 100% make sure she didn't get it in already,
there's nothing,
because I asked her about that.
there's nothing
do
in
that.
here.
Yeah, I don't think,
Yeah, cause she said she thought she could add it, but I don't see it here, so. This is all. This is-
Yeah, I just don't wanna leave it sitting up in their parking lot all
No,
summer. So I'd rather have it down here in the locked garage and know that it's secure, so when we need it, it will
of
be
course,
there.
Lisa has been on vacation too, so.
Right,
Yeah,
she's
okay,
coming
so-
in tomorrow. Up
yeah,
here.
cause she has to get all this stuff to the county treasurer and
Yeah.
everything. Okay, action item on that. Thank you very much.
Sure.
Okay, anyone else?
Hi, my name is Robbie Banks. I'm a paraeducator here at Mill Lake School. And I just want to post it on the record that the reason that we do not have proper minutes is because our former superintendent, Mr. Rogers, refused to comply with the law and provide a minute taker. And it was a hot topic of discussion over an extended number of months. So there were volunteers like myself who took 5 to 19 pages of notes at each meeting to make sure that people who made important public comments was recorded. As one of the OWL meetings, a 6-hour meeting was somehow not recorded, and very valuable information that was sent in by email to the board members or made in public comment was lost. And so to ensure that that did not happen again, and there was some sort of record, I have been taking notes voluntarily. I am not good at it. And poor Lisa has been burdened with the atrocious job of listening to copious and endless hours of our board meetings and transcribing. So just wanted it on the record again. The reason we do not have a proper minutes is because Bob Rogers did not provide one when Keith brought that up last March. And every meeting since.
And I know Lisa really appreciates your handwritten minutes. And yes, and Lisa has been transcribing them as told by our superintendent. But now we are the superintendent, so we hope we're gonna fix this problem. And I
Yes.
appreciate that because it's a problem that's been out there for a long time.
Since last March.
And so once we get it fixed, then we can redo the policy that Diane brought up to make sure that we are giving very specific direction to the person who is taking the minutes about what we want them, what their structure is. And so I forgot to say, if you'd like, please state your name.
I think we know.
Okay,
So far.
But the policy for minutes says the secretary of the board keeps the minutes.
that's
Yeah,
right.
But it
Superintendent.
also
Not
says,
the superintendent.
it also says that our other policy says they will appoint a recording secretary. And that's where the whole.
Yeah.
Oh, can they appoint themselves as recording secretary? We just want some, we need to move forward at this point.
It's been a topic for a long time. We're moving forward. We're going to have someone do it because we don't have someone to do it right
Right.
now. And in addition, once we have someone to do it, we can be in a position to consult with a new principal and ensure that our policy meets the needs. I'm sure that principal will have some experience on what they like to see. So we should be able to come up with some super good resolutions, but it's gonna be another 60 days. Meanwhile, let's get somebody on board to help us out and to help the new principal out so we can move forward. Next,
I'll just say, I'm also a paraeducator here, but my name's Greta Wimby. I believe that Bob Rogers did everything ethically and professionally and the moral trained in on how to take the minutes. So we're always, people are gonna see the same thing different ways, but can we just let it go?
we're
That's
moving
the
on.
first
Thank
part
you.
of
You're
our
out.
meeting
Thank you for
Where
your
it was
comment.
brought up.
Okay.
All right, anyone else? All right, let's move forward with our discussion items. Update on the new teacher hiring. Let's see. Put these. The minutes back until another time, I guess. So we're on to new teacher hiring. We have two preferred candidates. So that's very, very exciting. The interview team did an awesome job, our second interview team for the 3 through 5 classroom. So on the K through 2 classroom, that individual has done the fingerprinting. ESD is doing the check on the fingerprinting to make sure that there's no surprises there. And then they're providing us with assistance of someone that can make sure that we can verify certification from the state to get the transcripts from their from their college and transcript from their previous employers. So then we'll be able to negotiate a contract or get a contract in place with a K through 2 teacher. And then the 3 through 5 teacher with the team just selected a preferred candidate. That person has not been able to pick up the package yet from Lisa for all the paperwork she has to fill out. So once she gets that, she'll fill all that paperwork out. Paperwork comes back to Lisa, she gets her fingerprints taken, then the whole due diligence is started again. So both of those are underway. I think they did a great job. And so for the the 3 through 5 teacher, we had 4, I believe. It was Jennifer and Greta and Jolynn and a parent. No, Jolynn's a parent.
Robbie.
And Robbie. Okay, yeah, we had 2 paras, a teacher and a parent. So they did a super, super good job. And it was hard. It was hard, so. Anyway, so that piece is moving forward. Related to that, even though we won't have our 3 through 5 teacher on board yet, we do need to get that classroom cleaned out. And Tim asked me again this afternoon or yesterday, I believe, not sure which, that room needs to be cleaned out further. And can we get that new teacher involved? And I told him, yes, Greta has said that she would be happy to help. I think that's still the case, right? And I think Tim talked to you. Oh, okay, I thought he mentioned it. Oh, okay, I thought he just mentioned that, an hour ago when I saw him in the hallway. So anyway, I'll try to coordinate getting her up here so that they can go through the classroom and see what things that are there that she'd like to have and what things she wouldn't. Is that about it, Greta? There's a cupboard just packed with stuff. And then every shelf and nook and cranny is full, right?
Yeah, there's a lot, and there's some things are curriculums that has to stay, some things are old and some things could probably go to the dumpster, but we have to sort it all out. And then also things that we have to keep, we have to figure out where to put it. It just can take some time. I've done it before, I did another classroom, where, I don't know, it took a good week or so to like sort it all out, think it through, where we're gonna store it, if we have to keep it, because any curriculum thing, anything that's stamped in the school, we have to keep.
So what I'll do, I'm not real sure, Greta, do you want to work with Bridget yourself to try to come up with a time? How do you want to do that?
If you're okay with that, I can coordinate with her.
Okay, so let me get a hold of her and
Okay,
see what her schedule's like, and maybe the two of you, there's no reason for me to be in the middle.
yeah, even if she can come even for a day and say I'd like this and that, you know, I don't know how
Yeah.
much time she has.
Okay, we have a,
Bridget's on the
Bridget
call.
is on.
okay, are you done? Thank you. Yeah, on the Zoom,
No, I said Bridget's on the call. Looks like she's on the Zoom.
oh, there's Bridget right there.
So if you had a question for Bridget, you could probably ask her.
So who usually, do they usually, the teachers clean the rooms out at the end of the year? And how come she didn't clean her?
No,
Well, she
That's
took
it.
all of her personal stuff out, and then they have to move all the stuff off the floor so it can be polished and shined and cleaned and all the dust come out. But the stuff that's in there is all on shelves and in cupboards.
And
And
they,
then
they
you don't have
usually
to-
leave them there?
Yeah, on the shelves
Or
and
store
cupboards, we don't have to clean those out.
Okay,
Yeah.
just wondering, if she just left it or?
Well, it's school stuff.
Yeah, I
So,
realize that.
but the new teacher just has to decide whether she
Wants,
wants it or not.
wants a lot of it.
Yeah.
Like the new teacher would be like, I don't need this. It doesn't apply for.
So Bridget, I'll get a hold of you, or you could get a hold of me and let me know kind of what your schedule is over the next couple of weeks, and we'll get you in communication with Greta. And you guys can take a look at the classroom.
Thank you. That sounds great.
All right. Now, you already met Greta because she was on the interview team, so that's great. That I think we'll let the two of you take a look at the room and see what you think. Thank you. Oh. I think that's it for new teacher hiring. So principal, okay, so we have several things regarding the principal. And so I believe you got from Vicky, the job description. If you have any comments or anything about the job description, I copied it in case you don't recall it, but I know Vicky sent it out to everyone twice. She asked for comments back on the job description. So the job description needs to be done so it can be linked with our ad. Our ad has been out for a week or more, not quite sure. Maybe since our last meeting, and we actually have we have 7 people who have responded. I think I have an 8th one who has just expressed interest but hasn't submitted any information yet. So once this is out, then this is, once everybody agrees, now this is a living document, of course, we can change it anytime we want, whatever. But once we are happy with this version, then I'll send it out to all of these people, and I'll also have Doug link it with the job application on the website. The ESD has to have a job description before they'll put it out on their website. So once we like this, then I'll give it to ESD also.
I didn't find anything wrong with it.
Yeah,
I
I
don't have
didn't.
anything to compare it with personally, but you
Well,
know,
this is the
but it-
updated one, right? So-
but it's, yeah, but it looks fine with me.
Yeah.
Okay, so the next thing on the list, then, we like this job description. Does everybody agree we're gonna go forward with it for now?
Yeah.
So, okay, I'm gonna write on it here.
I was nodding my head.
What?
Yeah, she heard. I said I was nodding my head for the record.
Well, that's it, you've got video, so.
Right. You can get that in the minutes. Eric nodded his head.
So the next thing that she sent out to us for our discussion was kind of a brief on a interview timeline and a structure and timeline. So we need to see how we like that, and if we like it, talk about possible dates. So that's, send that over to Diane, this is for you, no, two to her,
Oh,
two to
sorry.
you,
Oh, July 11th.
two to Derek. Of course, don't you love this calendar, it's totally blank. So one's July and one's August.
You gave me three.
Oh, sorry. So obviously your appointments and my appointments aren't on this, but what this does is, give us something to think about as far as timeline. Because if you write, the first thing you write on here is on the 21st of August, teachers come back to school. That's teachers' first day, August 21st. And
That's coming
today, of
pretty quick.
course, I know, today is July 15th.
Yeah.
So we've
Yeah.
got,
So
we only have 4 weeks in between. Basically, since this week's pretty well shot. So the timeline kind of says, first, of course, establish an interview team. So let's just talk about that right now before we go down any other bullets. She is suggesting that we have a couple of PCIA staff, a couple of K-8 staff, which would be teachers and support staff, both students and parents. And board members, so we probably should not have more than 2 board members. And so if we feel like we've got too big of a team we're putting together, we'll divide the team up. And they'll have, one team will have a set of questions. And she explains that here. You divide them into 2 groups, divide the questions, switching candidates so that all candidates answer all questions. And so let's start thinking about this initial interview team. Now, first, before that, there'll be like, what do you say when you're cutting the cows or culling the field herd, culling the herd or something?
You mean like the screening, the next step?
Yeah. So there'll be a pre-screening, because there may be someone that just doesn't have the qualifications or something else or whatever. May not
Right.
need to do any culling, or we may need to do culling, so. But so then the interview team, before they interview candidates, could go over it's been culled down to 5 people or 6 people or whatever it gets culled down to. They could go over those and cull it down further to start in-person interviews with.
Right.
Reducing it down.
So really what you need is their application first. That'll give us, their schooling, their experience, everything like that. You can read it and you can do a lot of cutting just off of that right there.
Right,
Before
and
you
there
ever
is
even
not
get
an
to the interview.
application deadline yet. We're getting applications in, it'll be in the Pioneer and it'll go on the ESD website. But that's the first thing we really want to do. Do we want to have a cutoff for application submission?
I'd say by the end of this month, at the latest. If you do it by the end of this month, that'll give you
2 weeks.
2 weeks to narrow it down.
You could also
So-
say until filled.
Pardon?
Well,
You could also
well,
say
if-
end of the month or until filled.
well, if you have
Yeah.
already got, she's already got 8. So.
Right, so you could go with.
Yeah.
It's just those.
Yeah,
So
No.
even if you cut it off this
Right.
Friday,
yeah.
if you cut it off this Friday, we could take those 8 and start
Mhm.
figuring it out.
Well, we can start doing the reviews, even though, if we cut it off, it's only gonna be out in the paper until Thursday this week. Then it'll be out
Okay.
the next Thursday, then that's it, just 2 weeks, and be on the ESD website about a week.
So is there anything that we would be remiss if we didn't give them enough time to everybody know about it? Could that?
You mean to advertise?
Yeah, would there be kickback on us for not doing it right?
I don't think, it's entirely up to us from that point of view. What might happen is that, you wanna have a nice, good selection, and we may have, I haven't even read the applications. So I don't know if we've got like three super, super good people, or if we have
Nobody.
real
None,
good
right, we have, we
people.
would have 8 and be like, oh, the
I
pre-screening
know.
took all 8 out.
Yeah,
Or we could have 5 really
So we
good.
have, we
That's
have
what I
eight, we
mean,
don't
I-
have 8
Right.
applications. So
Right.
we've
but I like
People have
Jennifer's
requested
idea about.
info, 8 people have requested.
Right.
info.
How long has
Some
that,
of them maybe looking for
the ad been
$1,000
out?
or you're done.
So it
Right.
went on our website, I believe, a good week and a half ago or more. I think it went on not too long after our last meeting.
So how long do they usually go on?
Well, a lot of times you say until filled and you leave it out there till you've selected somebody.
Yeah.
So for the teachers, we took them off as soon as we had a preferred candidate.
Well, a lot of this is gonna, to me, what's gonna dictate it is do you want this person in place, you know, a week before school starts? Or does that matter? If that doesn't matter, then you just leave it open till filled.
From my personal viewpoint, it's critical to have somebody before the first day of school.
Well, that's
I would
what I'm
think
It's
so,
saying.
too.
essential to have
Yeah.
somebody before otherwise, guess who's doing the schedule finalization?
Yes, so that's why I'm saying, if we close it up. Close it at the end of July, that gives us 2 weeks to go through everything and nail it down to one person.
So the other issue,
That's cutting it close.
it is, and it's cutting it close, and the big issue is, so, and we'll use the teacher interviews, for example. I did not in the first teacher interview for the K through 2, I participated, but I didn't ask questions. I just sat there, but if they had a question about the district or something else, I could answer it. The second one, I did not participate because I believe that if you're gonna do a fair job, you have to have the same people interview. And if you have one person that shows up for this interview, but they don't show up for the other one, it's not fair to the candidates.
That's true. I can
And so I
understand
didn't participate in the 3 through 5 interviews because I knew I couldn't be there. And so what this means is that we're gonna select a team. The bigger it is, most likely we can't get them together in the next 2 weeks. And we need to get them together by the end of next week at the latest, by mid next week. So that's gonna be a real challenge to find a team that's available. And so basically, we only have one elementary teacher. Are you gonna be on vacation?
I will be gone August 8th through the 19th.
Hopefully that will.
Whew. That's a long time.
But that's the perfect time. I mean, you know.
Hmm?
It works, I mean, it works because you want to have somebody by, you know, August.
Well, what
9th.
that would do, you know, you're right, what that would do is that would put the final interview, which would be just the board probably,
Mhm.
and probably just be between 2 candidates
Yeah.
on that week.
Yeah,
Of the last week, or are you talking on the week of 11th through the 16th?
Right,
I mean, there,
yeah.
yeah. So, wait, 11 through 16.
cause
Oh.
our next, board meeting is on the 19th.
That's exactly right.
So-
I'm sorry, I didn't tell you to add that to your calendar.
Yeah, so.
The 19th of August is our
So-
board meeting.
If school starts
The 20,
the 20,
teachers show up the 21st.
yeah,
School doesn't start then, but
yeah, I
School
would,
starts the 28th.
I would suggest we have the teacher or the principal hopefully nailed in the week before, which means, you know, we have to come in and interview and everything that week, but that's still better than. I mean,
Okay,
you don't wanna hire the guy 2 days, hey, you know, you start day after tomorrow.
yeah,
hey, thank you, Kristen, you found us.
And
I
then-
did. I had to go searching on the website because I was like, I don't have a link. But I
It
prevailed.
didn't
They
get
found
up
it.
on time. We had an issue, so it wasn't up like it,
Oh,
on
she
time.
just, she had the link for our Zoom meeting. She had to go find it on the website. She said.
Yeah, right, it wasn't there until, didn't you
Yeah.
just put it
No, no,
there?
no.
The link is always there.
The link's always on our website. She just didn't have it.
Oh,
So she
okay.
didn't know where to log in. She doesn't
I
know.
was hoping it was the same link and it was gonna be good. So we're in business. So it worked out. I like the consistency
I'm
worked in our favor.
lost. So anyway, So we have one PCIA instructor with us on there. I don't know who all's available. I can send an email, that's my action, an email to all PCIA instructors to see who would be available during this time frame.
During the
Interviews.
the 5th through the 9th,
Probably the week before that,
the week before,
the 29th.
the 29th.
I mean, I think we should start early, but anyway, PCIA teachers available.
Well, if you make the cutoff date the 31st,
Well, we'll still need to start culling or something.
Okay.
Yeah, I suppose you're right.
well, then,
But
you-
we
you-
have
you
to
can-
fit in a community one yet. Don't forget. That's really important. We can't do it without community participation. We can make it pretty,
I think if there's any way possible, we try to get somebody who can start by the 21st, but it's even more important to get the right person. If that person can't be
Right.
here or anything else until the first week of
Yeah.
August, we need to figure out how to make that work.
Yeah.
and
so
get the right person.
then we've got staff and we know Greta's probably always available. You're going on vacation. You did your vacation already.
Yeah.
And Robbie, and I don't know our other paras, Katie, I don't know what her time frame is. And students, we have had some active parents. And so we probably have some students that would participate. We've got Jillian and Kez. Is that the name? The other parent that was participating in our interview process before. But we can send an email out. Lisa can send an email out for me to all parents.
Yeah, cause it'd be good to have some PCI parents participate.
Yeah, really.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so,
you,
okay,
you know, third graders, they.
okay,
they're not
email
gonna
all
have much to
parents.
say, are they?
The parents of third graders?
Oh, I thought they said students.
Well, no, we were talking about parents, but yes, students would be parents and
Parents
students.
and students, right.
That's for the schedule in the community meeting.
And that's, yeah, you're exactly right. That's where we need to, like what you were saying, Keith, and the committee, what days do I need to see if they're gonna be in town and available? And I am looking at the 29th through the 9th. Does that sound about right?
Yeah,
That's-
yeah, I
That's
mean,
two full
you can,
weeks, yeah.
you can have your close date on the 31st and you could go ahead and start the process ahead of time.
Right.
You'd actually start the process, the whole week before on the 22nd. Cause the first of the process is just reading what your applicants are, or what their education level is and everything about that. And you can decipher a lot of that out just by reading their application.
And so on the 22nd can be the goal of me to get the applications out to you guys of all the ones we have as of that date. And
Right.
so I'm gonna give my notebook to Lisa and have her copy it, so each of you could get a notebook with the full, everything they've submitted.
Okay,
And then as people come in, then we can add that.
So I think something else would be really helpful as we're doing that. As soon as we get an application, right, we can start does this person,
Yeah.
does this person there? We can also have someone, and some schools do this, when they do hiring, you can have someone start calling references and just answer and record a set of questions from talking to the references that the person sends reference letters to.
Okay,
Now you have information that says, hey, this is the candidate. We've, made sure they understand what the position is and they're still interested, that they meet our base qualifications. And we have a set of responses from the people that they've chosen to share with as references.
well, there's, ESD has recommended two people that, for me to contact to see if they're available, because we have to do the due diligence
Right.
also on our teachers. And they could help with that same due diligence with the principal. And so I'm hoping to hear back in the next couple of days with the two people that Marnie at ESD
We
recommended.
need the background check and the due diligence, but the kinds of questions I'm asking are. What would you say this person's leadership style is? how do they handle conflict? From like the references, not from the person themselves, and then that can be provided to the people that when they look at the candidate, just as like a packet on the candidates we're gonna be talking to, or.
Yeah, well,
whoever's
you know,
talking
and
to.
that, and so then that brings up also in addition, because you're absolutely right, we need the interview questions. We need questions, an interview sheet, which we have some, and I have one that I got off of WASD, I think. That we can ask each candidate, so we're asking the candidate the same questions.
Right, and I would say we should do the same thing for like the candidates' references. We can,
Yes.
but we don't necessarily, like, one person could call and just record the answers of the references.
Well, you really only want one person doing all the,
Right,
yeah, because.
creating the same binder of responses for
Yeah, you
each
don't want-
candidate. Right,
We need to
Because
be
usually
mindful
you don't call
yeah, of
of the
references,
time.
you usually
Until you
don't call
figure out.
references until
Get it narrowed down.
Yeah.
you've
narrowed
got
down,
it narrowed
yeah.
down.
Right. We're one.
Okay, we
we're
need to
1
start our
minute,
public
yeah.
hearing. Thank you, Diane. Okay, so we'll come back to see what else we need to do on there. Which is a lot. Just out of the way. Kristen, how are you doing? Are you about ready? I know that you have.
I'm doing well. Yeah, I'm ready. I'll just test to see if I can share my screens that you guys will be able to see the presentation. Otherwise, it'll just be a lot of my voice and nothing else. But oh, good, I can. All right, I will
there
share
you go.
that. I'll just okay. That sounded like an affirmative that somebody saw it, so that's a good sign.
Yep.
All right. Well, I'll just jump right in. That way we can kind of get going with it. I essentially took the same format of the presentation that Bob had previously done. So I try not to change everything if I don't have to on a district. But as we're going through things, in the next year, if you guys just find you want something done a little differently, we can always adapt. But I try to keep things as similar as possible. So here is, we'll get the presentation started for Mill A School District's proposed budget for this coming year. So the main things that are really we're seeing a difference between the previous year and the current year is one, the capital projects fund. We have a budget of adding $200,000 of a transfer from general fund over to the capital projects. And the main reason for utilizing some of those funds over there is that currently, we have less than $10,000 in capital projects, but a grant, opportunity of upwards of 800,000. And so when you're trying to process invoices and things of that nature, cash flow becomes a really difficult thing to manage when you don't have very much cash. And so the idea of having some of that available from general fund to be able to handle some of the cash flow, get the reimbursements coming back in, allows for a little more flexibility in that timing. When we put it into the budget, it doesn't require us to necessarily transfer the money, but it does give the district the opportunity, if you decide to go there. So it doesn't mean we have to move it right away. It doesn't even mean you have to move the entire amount, but it does allow for that, should that become something that we need to do for a cash flow. Another one of the changes that the new certificated salary schedule has been implemented in the new year. There was a lot of work over the last year with, the teachers union and the admin work together tirelessly and have a salary schedule. So this is that first new year of that new salary schedule. So some things are a little bit different there. And then another big change that the ESSER dollars, that federal stimulus dollars from the state, not the state, from the federal government are done, right? This is the current year we're in is the last year for those funds. And so they've been kind of a nice little opportunity for districts to utilize over the last few years. And now those are done. So now we have to go live in the world without ESSER. So what does that mean when we're actually looking at things? So here is a comparison of the revenues from the 23-24 budget to the 24-25 budget and kind of what this looks like. And I can kind of go into some of the differences here. When we're looking at, and I'm kind of a visual person, so in addition to just the numbers, I figure having a little bit of a pie chart never hurts to kind of get an idea of where those dollars are coming from. And you can kind of see from that pie chart that the bulk of the dollars truly come from the state, right? You know, we're looking at the largest portion in gray, 81% is just the state general purpose dollars. So that's where the majority, and then the next largest is that yellowy area, and that's also state dollars, but just more state, that's specific funding. So when we look at kind of the overall buckets, the local support non-tax. So the main increase there is having to do with the investment earnings. So those were under budgeted based on what's been actually coming in over the last few years. So that's been kind of adjusted to compensate for that. But you can see there are a lot of areas where we're actually looking at less revenue. In terms of the budget. So one of the culprits, and when we look at the state general and the state special purpose. So state general is going to be your basic ed apportionment, and you'll have some sped in there as well as sped in the state special purpose as well as some grants in there. So when we're looking at the change that's going into the negative. So some of that is a reflection of some CTE revenues that were budgeted incorrectly last year, or I should say they were overstated by a considerable amount based on the program that Mille would truly be having, to the tune of about 80,000 more than what we would actually bring in. Now that was offset with expenditure to recognize, so it wasn't a net impact necessarily, but in terms of why we're seeing the numbers decline, that's a large portion of it. And then there is some of the sped allocation is estimated to be a little bit lower, and that mostly is driven by enrollment counts and things of that nature, less about the actual allocation going down. And then when we look at the federal special purpose, the bulk of that is the ESSER dollars, right? We're no longer going to be receiving ESSER money, and that was previously in the budget. Whereas, the title dollars are still there, Title II, Title IV, the REAP. And just a note that the federal forest money is still not being budgeted in here, as you all are most likely aware, it is an inconsistent funding source, right? We don't really know until we get it how much we'll get or if we'll get it at all. So as in previous years, that's been budgeted just the same as not being there, and glad to get it if we do. And then the other, oh, sorry, yeah.
That brings up, I got a question real quick on that, that right there. So is that federal forest budget, is that in the 23-24 budget?
No.
Nope. That it's on the screen right now.
No,
Okay. I'm just trying to justify why, there's a shortfall of about $50,000.
The main difference is we thought CTE was gonna work one way,
Yeah,
and we were gonna participate, so there was like $80,000 of revenue and $80,000 of cost or something in that neighborhood.
right,
Right,
And then
yep,
it did happen, so the revenue never came, nor did the cost.
okay.
right, exactly, right. And we're talking about, the number of students for an enrollment really would have been closer to, $10,000, but it was budgeted as if there was a much larger enrollment than what would have realistically been the case. So that has kind of been rectified in that sense. And then as well as the federal ESSER dollars are no longer there. And again, that's both a revenue and an expenditure piece that's been removed from the budget. So that's what you're seeing. We're looking like there's a larger decline there, but in reality, it was areas of the budget that either were incorrect or funding sources like we know of at the ESSER that's not going to be there anymore.
Okay.
Right. Great questions though. All right. So that's really just kind of where, what money we have coming in. Then, the big thing everybody wants to know is what do the expenditures look like? And so you can actually see, I don't want you to be alarmed about the net position just quite yet, but I want to bring it because usually people always go to the net position first. And so it does project a net of $190,000 into a deficit. But really the bulk of that is a transfer for the capital projects. So if those dollars don't leave, then obviously that deficit's not there. So that's just something to keep in mind as we go through it. So when we look at the general fund expenditures, there's a couple different ways we can look at it. One of the ways is by program, and that's this. So when we look at the program, we're talking about what area of the school are we spending it in. So you have your regular instruction. So that's going to be your basic education, your teacher salaries, principals, things of that nature. That's impacting the schools directly. And so we're seeing an increase there in the regular instruction. Part of that is salary increases. Part of that is changing from no longer having, federal stimulus, that's that ESSER. So right with that leaving, if there were, any costs that were needed that were going to there have to be adjusted, right? They have to go into some of those other pockets. When we look at special education, that actually is a decline. And again, that's truly just based on enrollment. So the special education co-op that Millet is part of that works with ESD 112, it's really a pass-through of funds, right? We receive the money and we just send it right back into the ESD, and then ESD manages and takes care of the special ed program. So it's a pass-through of funding. So while that is a decline, it's a decline in both the revenue and expenditure, and they align together. So that's truly a net neutral impact. The vocation, I thought I heard something. Vocational ed, that's going to be part of the CTE. Some of the CTE was actually budgeted into an incorrect program, so it doesn't quite translate in the right way in terms of, kind of what we're talking about of that, the deficit and all of that piece. So there's some pockets that are a little different. So we'll get everything going here now that we've got kind of everything on a more consistent basis. But so there's been about a little bit of a decline there. We still have the budget capacity of one classroom period as CTE in the event that the program would continue, if there's still grant funding, whatever the case may be, that capacity is still built there with that staff member. The compensatory instruction, that's going to be things like your Title I, Title II, LAP, high cap, things of that nature. So slight increases there in some of the expenditures, and a lot of those will have very similar increases to some of the revenues, especially the state funded ones will have that IPD increase that will kind of help increase that a little bit and offset the expenditures. And then when we look at the other instructional programs, so there's a number of different things that can kind of fit into that other instructional programs, but a large part of that gets into the grant capacity. In the event that the district is awarded a new grant, we have that built in. So, and that's also, some of that is also on the revenue side as well, to have a bit of a net neutral impact, but that's going to be some of your the federal REAP goes into the other instructional programs. If there's any community programs, those can funnel through there. And that's kind of what we see in that area. So then when we get into support services, that is the district-wide expenditures. So that's going to be things like your main office, superintendent expenditures of that nature. So we are seeing a decline there. Part of that is a little bit of a reduction in some of the built-in, the district in the past has previously put into little pockets of a capital. It's not capital in nature in terms of capital projects, but some of those like little building renovations or things like that. So there's been a slight reduction there. I believe 40,000 was the previous figure, and that's gone to about 20. The other side too that you're seeing there in some of the changes in the support services is also things like the business manager position used to be an in-house position, and that would have been coded to support services versus having the ESD handling those services, that contract is for a lesser amount, so there's some savings there in the category. So things of that nature is kind of why we're actually seeing a bit of a decline in some of those expenditures. So, and then of course the transfer to capital project funds that we've already discussed a little bit. And so really at that point, we're looking at with the transfer, a deficit of about 190,000. Without it, just under 10,000 potentially going to fund balance. As fun as it is to look at it in that sense, we can look at it in a totally different way as well. And so that's not only the program, right? We're saying, well, what educational, part of the district it is. Now we can also look at it and say, all right, well, what is it though, right? Are we talking about salaries? Are we talking about supplies? A service that we're purchasing? And that's where we can, we can look at the information in a different way as well. So you can see the certificated salaries, we can see an increase there. We would expect to see an increase in some of those categories. And then we are looking at a decrease in the classified salaries. And again, the biggest contributor there is not due to reductions in staff. There's actually been additional hours here and there built into that budget. But what we're really seeing there is again, that business manager position was a classified salary position. So that being removed and other salaries changing with those things in combined, that's kind of why we're seeing a bit of a decline there. Then benefits, payroll taxes, that's going up. Same thing with, like I said, with those certificated salaries. So there's a couple staff members that we've budgeted to be able to, with the hours that were discussed in previous conversations with Bob and with Anita, and there's been a lot of changes. So, there may be, right, we have to think about the budget in terms of we are trying to build the capacity to the things the district needs and wants to do. And while we may have a plan, those things might change, right? We know there's a lot of things kind of up in the air with the staffing. Part of that did have additional staff that were eligible for benefits to potentially in the new year. And so that's where we're seeing kind of a bigger jump in those payroll benefit taxes. Supplies and materials, we are seeing a decline there. A large part of that is there was a decent portion in that CTE going to supplies, as well as the ESSER funding. Both of those had budget capacity in supplies. So with those being removed, shifting of some things, that's where we're seeing a bit of a decline there. And then purchase services. So purchase services can be, is a broad term, but essentially, and I kind of put a little bit of a caveat of everything kind of in the corner, or a lot of the things that fit into there. So the special ed co-op is part of purchase services. Any of the electricity, insurance, maintenance, some of the college and the high school fees, and then that's where kind of that building reserve fund, things of those nature can come into there. And so there was also some areas of capacity in there from CTE and ESSER. And so there's a good bulk of it there. And then also just having to revisit and look at the account codes and see, can we cut back on some of the buckets here because of increasing, salary and benefit costs in other categories, right? And so then there's been some shifting around of that, looking at actuals and where the district can go. And then travel, very minimal increases there. And that's really been more just aligning with what the travel looked like in this previous year compared rather than its budget. And I apologize if you can hear my dogs slurping their water bowl. I'm not sure if that's coming through the microphone, but it's distracting me, so I apologize if it's distracting you. So all in all, with the general fund, all of those things, the revenues and the expenditures, looking at, we're kind of we've got about a history of the last couple years of fund balance. There's been some additions over the past few years. We are looking at ending with about 955,000. That was an estimate that may be a little high at this point. Now with some of the with some payouts and things that are happening kind of in the end of the year that wouldn't have been for a typical year. So it may end up being a little bit high. But we also received the most apportionment in the last 2 months of the year. So it's higher than what our current fund balance is. So things will swing up a little bit. So it's a little bit of a projection here, and we'll see where we end up. But with that projection of about 955,000, we would be projecting to have about 764,000 at the end of the year. Again, dependent on the transfer from general fund to capital projects fund, and with the knowledge that any federal forest money that potentially could be received would increase that and kind of help with that money that was transferred. So that's general fund, and all of those, the assumptions. So the biggest driver of revenues for a school district is the enrollment, right? I mean, the number of students that we have is really what drives the revenues that we see from the state. And so this was the kind of a little bit of a history of the last few years, as well as what was forecasted and what we have in the budget that's driving those revenue figures. So this is the MSOC disclosure form, and if you've seen one of these presentations before, you've probably seen this sheet before. And this year, it's actually just a slightly more important thing to make sure that you guys are getting this out or seeing this in this budget presentation. This last year, in the legislative session, they allocated a little bit of additional dollars for schools based on for their MSOC costs. And it was roughly about $21 per student, which, when you have less than 100 kids, it doesn't amount to a whole heck of a lot extra, but we'll take anything we can get, right? So this form, essentially what we have to disclose is we have to show and look at what, based on enrollment, we would be projecting that we're going to receive from the state for the materials, supplies, and operating costs. That's what that MSOC stands for. And so for Mill A, the generated figure is about 239,000. And so based on our current budget for program 01 basic ed and program 97, the district-wide expenditures, we have budgeted to spend more than that, which is very common, very typical. I would be shocked if we didn't see something like that. But essentially, this is a requirement just to ensure that the district is utilizing the revenue that is received for MSOCs and is spending them on MSOCs. We're not allowed to go and spend the additional dollars that the legislature granted on anything else. And so that's why this is just a little bit more important than previous years, because they just had a little bit of compliance. Now, the main reason is if we received more revenue than we planned to be able to spend for these particular MSOCs, we would have to state what the district was planning to utilize those additional dollars for and how it would improve student achievement. So. Okay, so that's going to wrap up general fund. The rest of the funds go pretty quick. There's not a lot of meat to them. So we can fit revenues and expenditures all on one page. So capital projects fund, we're looking at, we still have that grant opportunity, I believe that Bob was saying. So we're still budgeting for that modernization grant potential, and then in the revenue side, and then the expenditure, or excuse me, and then the other revenue would be that 200,000 transfer. If and when the district decides to follow through with that, they can do that at any point in the year. And then for the expenditure, looking at that same 800,000 of capacity. So it would be a net impact of 200,000 with the transfer, net neutral without the transfer.
I thought we already transferred that too much.
I thought so too, but you didn't.
So I think my understanding was that at the previous superintendent was bringing it up to you guys and got it the understanding that was or got the go ahead. It was my understanding, and then they had the option of, you can either do a resolution in the current year to just move it now, or you can include it in your budget, and the resolution for the budget includes it. It kind of gives you a little bit of a longer time period to truly decide to pull the trigger and move on with it. And so
So
they
if it was in the budget, we don't need a resolution because we've approved it as part of our budget.
Yeah, that's what.
Correct. Yep, exactly. Yep, it's in the resolution, the budget resolution. So then it just means at any point in this next fiscal year, you guys can choose to move up to that 200,000 over. Or not, right? Nothing forcing you, but it gives you the option, that flexibility. Okay, ASB. So ASB is easy because it's not our money, it's the kids' money, right? And then really the only differences that we're seeing here between the previous year and the current year was a correction of the actual account codes that were being utilized previously. So there were things that were being classified incorrectly in our account code structure. And so I kind of went in there and cleaned that up. And so in doing so, that changed where some of the buckets are, but in reality, the net impact to the budget is a neutral one. And it still gives them the same capacity as in the prior year. And then we have our transportation vehicle fund. So this one is pretty simple. We pretty much get just a little bit of interest earnings from the bank account. And then we have state apportionment that comes in for the depreciation of buses. And we're looking at roughly around 30,000 for that coming in. And then for the expenditure, we typically, and this is something that most districts that I've worked with have typically done, is they've taken their fund balance that they have and they keep that amount as a potential expenditure. Now, do I think you're probably going to go buy a bus for $73,000? Probably not. Well, it wouldn't be a big one, that's for darn sure. You might not even be able to get a Sprinter van for that, I think. But at any rate, so the capacity is there should something major be necessary, but in all likelihood, we're not really looking at buying a bus. Most buses for, full size buses we're looking at anymore are 170 to 190,000. So the likelihood is that it'll be a few years out and we've received more depreciation funding. And the reason why we wouldn't include that depreciation funding in the capacity to spend is that doesn't come in until August of apportionment at the end of one of the very last days of the fiscal year. So we really wouldn't have it available to spend. So there. And so then the other side, this was something that's a little that you guys may not have seen before. I didn't see it in the previous year's budget presentation, but part of the budget that we produce it's called the F-195. And then there's now the F-195F, which is a 4-year budget projection. Now, you guys have been utilizing a spreadsheet and doing a projection out. So, I know you guys have been consistently looking ahead at the future, which is wonderful. And so this is essentially just a little bit of a snapshot of what those projections from that spreadsheet that's been utilized at all the budget meetings in the past, what that looks like in a very condensed format, right? Just to be able to summarize it and say the impacts of, and that's really for general fund because the other funds again are pretty minimal in what we're seeing, but this is what the impacts of that look like with the current year and then projecting out those revenues and expenditures moving out the next 4 years. ASB fund, we're just looking at net neutral. It's the kids' money. They're gonna, they'll likely change how they want to budget, in a future year, and that's up to them. Capital projects, we would anticipate if we, had the entire grant taken care of in this current year, then and we transferred the funds over, there would be that fund balance that would carry over until either until we decided to move back some of the funds or another project potentially, but at this point, there's nothing that I've been made aware of into the budget to do so. And then for transportation vehicle fund, this is kind of where you're seeing, you know, we'd roughly receive about 30,000 or so for the next few years, and kind of how those funds would grow. So really, if we don't, you know, look at spending any of those, that 73,000 this year, by that 4th year, there would be funds enough to potentially be looking at buying a bus by 26, 27, maybe 27, 28 if we want a little bit extra buffer. But that is the end of the official presentation. So I don't know if there were any questions or things anyone wanted to talk about with regards to it. I am here for it.
I think that was excellent. Can you send us a copy of that PowerPoint presentation?
Absolutely, yes.
Wonderful. It was absolutely, I loved the pie charts. They were
Oh,
super.
good. I like seeing things in a visual format too. You know, I love numbers, don't get me wrong. I live in them, but I do like a good visual. So glad you
So
enjoyed it.
one of the things that we found that was advantageous, and one of the reasons we agreed to go ahead and move money into the capital improvement fund was that, you know, if some weird thing should happen and we need to move it back, we can do that. Does that moving back need to be part of a budget? Does that
So
need to be identified as a line item
well,
in a budget?
yeah, so it essentially any transfers, they do kind of have to be, there's a couple different processes for transfers. So specifically with general fund, there's 2 ways to transfer. You can do a transfer as a redirection of apportionment, or a transfer of local funds. And so since federal forest money is technically a local resource because it's meant to supplement local levies and things of that nature. So when they have us break them down in sub funds, we have to, that comes in as that piece. So if it's a redirection of apportionment, OSPI has to approve it before you move it. If it's local, we don't have to ask OSPI for permission. The board just has to sign a resolution or have it in a budget with a resolution, and that suffices as well. So the answer to that is technically because we'd be moving local resources, the district could choose to do a resolution to move it back. And it's only because you're moving it back to the same fund, right? We couldn't then say, well, now capital projects had extra money from some, you know, a levy or a grant or something. Let's pretend that happened. You couldn't move it to transportation just for fun, right? You'd have to, if it's basically only money that general fund sent to capital, you can send back if it's no longer needed for whatever the intended purpose that it was. So you wouldn't have to go through a formal budget process for it necessarily, because it's not a, transfers are not considered expenditures. So they aren't part of the appropriations that you approve in a budget. They're an other, oh, now I'm gonna, an other financing use, excuse me. So, so which hits a little different in the budget. So it doesn't send you as going over a budget to send it back. That was probably a long-winded answer for something that could have been a lot simpler, but, yeah.
All right, well, thank you very much to.
I got a couple questions for you. So,
Sure.
I'm assuming that this is not the only school that you do this for?
Correct. Yep. You are correct.
So, as far as the budget goes, to increase our budget, basically, the best way to do that would be to increase the student population, right?
To increase the revenue, yes, right? Yeah,
Yes.
the more students that you have, the more revenue you would generate.
So generally speaking, you're better off. I'm assuming you're better off having more students get to, I believe that for like, K through 8, the threshold is about 70. Then you jump into another bracket as far as what the federal and state will give you.
Yeah, so
Revenue.
actually, well, it's funny that you mentioned, so the 70 student count with regards to a K-8 is actually a triggering point where if you go from literally 70 to 70.1, because there's no ease into it, it generates half an FTE of a staff.
Oh,
There's
So
this.
so really, in your opinion, if we had 71 students versus how many we have right now,
46.
46. So if we were to go up to 71 students, how much better off would our budget be?
Well,
You know?
okay, so well now we start getting into a couple different things because there's the small school factor has a number of different thresholds that kind of dictate the funding. So right now, I guess for an example, I guess I have I've got another district I work with that has about 68 or so. They hover right below that magical 70 threshold for them. And so for
Yeah.
their 68 kids, they generate about what is it, 4.5 teachers. So, compared to the K-8 program that we currently have, right? There's additional teachers in there. And then if they were also to just hit just a couple more kids, then they get that extra half. So yeah, if you're in that 60 range, you would have funding for additional additional teaching staff. And that's more true the more students are in K3 because they're funded at a higher rate than students in 4 through 8. So K3 ratio is 17-1 funded versus the other ones get up to about 27 by the top end of middle school.
I wonder if,
So
would
you
that
need
dictate
less.
on how you
More
How you
younger
divide
younger
out?
kids.
we wind up, right now, we have three teachers for K through 8. So
Mhm.
if we wind up with the money to have a fourth teacher, would that right there dictate how you'd divide the grades up again?
Partially, yeah, right. Because you would want to meet the only area of K-8 where there's true compliance for class sizes is in the K3, right? Because they changed the funding to be that 17-1 ratio. So it also gets to the point where if you have 18 in the class, you actually get dinged. They don't give you everything because you're not truly doing the 17-1 ratio. So there are some caveats where you kind of have to balance, do you have is that larger population mostly older students, and so they're funded at a higher rate rather than the 17-1. You'd need 8 or 9 more students to generate the same FTE that you would in the K3, but then the K3 grow up, right? So, you have this, it is a little bit of a tricky thing to navigate sometimes. But it absolutely can impact, who is doing what age groups and how that works out to make sure that the compliance is there, but also, generating the revenues to make sure that, the funding is there for the staffing levels.
So the additional revenue for an additional student compared to the additional cost for that student. Do you see that from a budgetary standpoint? If we had 10 more students in our elementary school, if we were at 55,
Mhm.
what would we expect to be our like on the budget calculator, pumping up our students
Mhm.
with the same teachers? Does it look at a more positive budget?
Right, yeah, if the classroom sizes were larger, it would, you'd have the same expenditures here, but you'd have additional revenue supporting it. And that's, so it kind of gets to the point where, you are thinking about it in a good holistic side of what is my current cost per student, right? Or and that's something where we could absolutely look at some of those figures and kind of, we have, it's called the F203, and it's essentially a tool that we can utilize with the OSPI creates that that literally will give us scenarios for the apportionment. And I believe that's kind of what the calculator that you guys have was built off of, right? And so we could run all sorts of scenarios and look at what does that do to our revenue. And what's nice about that F203 is it will pump out as well and say, well, here's what we're generating for certificated staffing. Here's what we generate for classified staffing with these enrollment projections. And so it kind of opens
So
that up.
can this would also flow into the PCIA, I'm assuming.
No, that's funded different.
No, yeah.
We
I
would
was
have to have
saying,
a-
my understanding of
we would have to have
PCIA
more.
was that it was a different, typically high school, it would be, but because this is a different program, my understanding was that was not the case, but I don't have a great grasp on the funding for PCIA because I don't have much, this is the first one I've ever dealt with.
PCIA is funded for a set number of teachers up
Okay.
until you get to a really high. Like we have to get enrollment
Yeah.
going beyond that, because we need a history teacher, we need a science teacher, we need a.
Right, okay.
Right.
Are they treating it kind of like a small high then? Because there
Yeah,
is
it is
small-
it's treated quite a bit like a small high.
Okay, okay. Because yeah, I mean, that helps a little bit because we would know what the thresholds, but yeah, you're right. Then, an additional student in PCAA really wouldn't generate much in terms of, an additional allotment of a teacher salary, but it might help with some of the MSOC costs. But that's a much smaller piece of the pie in terms of the, what that generates. But so just a figure for you guys in your mind, at least for this last year, the 23-24 year, the BEA rate for basic education allocation rate for Mill A, and it's averaging kind of everybody in that in those groupings is about 9,500. So for any additional students in basic education, it's like, here's another almost 10,000, right? And so, if you think about, well, how expensive is a teacher? Well, obviously it'll depend on where they land on the salary schedule and all of that. And then you think about at least 30% or so in benefits to ensure that you've got that piece. So it's just some things to chew on, if you've got, let's say, 65,000 for a teacher and their benefits bring, you're roughly looking at $100,000. So you've got to have at least 10 more kids to usually generate enough to have an additional teacher,
Yeah.
right?
So, just out of curiosity, Skamania School is doing quite well then, I imagine. They have over 100 kids.
Are they at over 100 this year?
Yeah, next year.
Dang. I was gonna say, I know a few years back, they had dropped just below that 70, and it was like, it was that magic number was driving them crazy because they lost half an FTE right there in that year. And I haven't really, one of my coworkers works with Skamania more closely, and so I haven't really dipped into their stuff. I didn't realize their enrollment was up.
70, next year, they're over 100.
Wow, yeah, no, that's probably, I mean, I'm sure that's a major change for them. Yeah, if you have the space to put them and then, and the ability to hire the staff, right?
We have space now.
I don't think their school is any bigger than ours.
Yeah, but they don't have
Building.
PCIA using part of it.
I know.
And I have a question, this just off the top of the eligibility for us to get federal forest funds.
Mhm.
Does that impact that at all? Any of these things that you just said?
Nope, that's totally separate. Yep.
Yeah.
That's just a bonus if we get it each year.
Kristen, this is Jennifer Talbot. I'm the 6th through 8th grade teacher. And when you mentioned the 17 student enrollment in K3, is that 17 for a one grade level? Because we have the mixed or multi-grade level classrooms. Is 17 still?
Right. That's a fantastic question. So the requirements with that is an average, right? So an averaged out. So it does not require them to be in separate classrooms. So you could have a K through 2 classroom with 17 kids and one teacher, and that would do it. You could also have, one, let's say you had enough in that K3 grouping to have one with 17 or one with 16 and one with 18. They average out to both be 17, right? That ratio of 17 to 1 as a whole for the district or the school building. And so that would still meet compliance as well. So it is done on an average, not necessarily a per classroom basis. And there are some other little pieces too that factor in. So if there are additional certificated staff that go into the classroom for other purposes as well, they can be counted for portions of the day that they're spent there. So specialists can also be counted towards that. In terms of the compliance, which kind of gets a little bit heavy at that point. But yeah, no, it's a great question.
All right, how are we going? Any more questions?
Oh, I'm good.
Well, I have
Kristen, that was
I have a
awesome.
question that it's not directly for Kristen, but when we started PCIA, we capped the grade school level at 40, except if we get more in-district kids. So what impact does that, I mean, what would have to change there? How do we do that?
We said. We can get the policy out, but
Yeah.
it's written a little differently.
Okay, yeah, that's what I was trying to remember is because I know we did
We
that.
can accept over 40. If it doesn't impact the student experience, or if the administration doesn't view it as
Okay,
or over, depending on the classroom, right?
Mhm.
Because if you have
right, so.
17,
it's all
if you have
lumped,
17, 17 and 6.
Yeah, then
then
it's
you
right
can, if somebody's in the room with 6, it would make sense
to allow more kids in that classroom.
right.
So it might not be, yeah, it might not be one big pocket, but.
Yeah,
three,
absolutely.
so-
Well, that's,
Well, I'm saying you might wanna accept more in the 17, but you might.
What I'm looking at is the whole, the whole system can be changed by putting another trailer out there. Then you just move PCIA out there, they have more room for PCIA, and then you also have this building with you, so then you have more room for K through 8.
Let's
That's what-
say goodbye to Kristen and then
Okay.
let's keep going on that.
Right.
Kristen, thank you very much. I know
Thank
you
you.
have another commitment. We really appreciate it. If you think of something else we should know, just let us know. Otherwise, I'd love to have a copy of your presentation. It was wonderful.
Absolutely. Yep. I'll send it to you right away. And thank you guys for having me. It was great to get a chance to kind of hear from you. I know I've been working with Anita a bit here, but nice to hear all of your voices and hear what you're doing for the school. So keep up the good work.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
We should make
Okay,
sure
go
that
ahead,
the
Keith,
deck
I
gets
don't
loaded
have to
into
do-
board docs.
What?
This should be like, the presentations and stuff should just be
Yeah,
loaded
that'd
into the
be
board docs,
wonderful, wouldn't
so
it?
it's there for public to reference.
Really, yeah.
Yeah. it
Can I
would be
use the
great.
restroom real quick?
Sure.
Are we taking a
That's
bio break?
Yeah, I guess
That's
we're
a
gonna
good
take a
idea.
real quick break here.
Yeah.
Keith, please don't forget about your question.
Think better all the time, every night.
Every night. That's when I think about things at night.
So,
So, yeah, I did a resolution for the $200, but, and then when talking to Kristen, when I discovered that she put it in the budget, then we don't need it.
$200,000.
Huh?
It's $200,000.
Oh, yeah. A few zeros on the end.
Sometimes they make a difference.
so this last week, the 29th, 30th, 31st, and the 1st, I'm working. So that week I'm gonna be working. Yeah, it's the Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday.
Okay, just a second here. Just a
And then be
second,
at the
just a second.
hospital
What did I do with my calendar? So of July,
Yes, and the first of all.
so the 29th, 30th,
Yeah.
31st and
If you
first.
need me, I can come in because, I'm I'll be going to work at night, 7 o'clock at night is when I'll start, 8 o'clock at night. No, I can start at 10 at night, I kind of just go in and do my thing and.
Okay, so the 29th through the first.
Yeah.
Keith is gone. Okay, gone, unavailable.
So Anita, I should be here at our next board meeting, but I fly out the 16th and I fly into Portland at like 2 on Monday. So I'll be
2 in the morning.
2 in the afternoon. Oh. So I should be able to be here by 6 unless there's a,
So, okay, so you're gone what days? 13th through the 16th?
no, the 16th through, I get back on the 19th of August.
Okay, it's the 16th through the 18th, okay.
So we're leaving the 6th of November to the.
He's just like.
Tentatively, I'm trying to set things up, so.
Oh, my gosh.
He's going to Hawaii.
Oh, I thought you were gonna go to the 4th of November.
Yeah, no, well, it's our 35th anniversary, so we're gonna go to.
That's a great place to go in November.
Our time and
We don't
so
know.
we do want to wait on coming. Yeah, but we do.
I think getting that small school funding formula,
So they
calculator up,
we guess
like
Saturday.
showing
We did the day trip.
the impact and looking at the impact again would be
We were gonna-
useful as a board
I think our
exercise.
4 to 5 year budget is really critical because, you know, we've got a lot of concern about
We knew if we were there.
salaries going up and income not.
Christina went.
Right, and we are a pretty stagnant community
Mhm.
district. All of us old people are still here. I'm providing no kids.
And it's
and
really,
not-
it's really easy for young people to move into this.
Right.
At these current property values, right?
Oh, golly, how can any kids afford anything?
At 30-year-old.
I
Wasn't we heard to.
I wouldn't be able to, I wouldn't be able to afford it.
District kids.
Yeah, it is
District kids
absolutely
are the only-
ridiculous.
only
Yeah.
thing we can do, yeah.
And so I mean, you know, the academy is drawn kids because of its uniqueness and,
Yeah.
but I don't know about grade school, if people would, you know, that many people would,
If Stevenson keeps getting worse and worse, like it is.
that's a possibility, more people coming out.
If there was quite a waiting list, I think, for your class,
For.
That would
the
be,
K-8.
that would be interesting to, yeah, we should know that. We should know what the waiting list. Jennifer said there's quite, she thought there was quite a waiting list for the K-8. So if we need that
Yeah.
solid.
How many kids did you
To
have?
know, because when you're talking about, because we
I'm
use
going
up
to have,
the
I
space
think,
in this
16.
building.
Yeah.
And so if you're
And how
talking
many did you have
about
last
putting a
year?
whole nother,
Well,
that's,
but,
that would,
you know,
that would take a lot of kids to pay for that.
Well,
Okay, for what?
you know, and you were
Yeah,
talking
yeah.
earlier, I think the 15 kids per classroom is the ideal that we set. And we try not to go above that, but we were at 46 for this year, so we must have had more in one
Well,
classroom.
I
a
know,
few less
I know
in
the
another.
40 was there, you
Yeah.
know.
So my idea about that building out there is a grant.
And then.
Start.
Looking for
Why
opportunities.
is it grant?
No, I think we should take another look at it, because.
Yeah, we should.
As we go lower, we don't lose much revenue beyond a certain point.
Right.
But as you go higher, you
Oh,
start
yeah.
gaining, but then you hit that, oh, we have to pay for another $100,000 teacher. But then you go higher enough to actually pay for them if we.
Well, that's,
Yeah,
that's exactly what
yeah,
you
there's-
said. You know,
There's a very small sweet spot, isn't there, you know?
yeah.
That
That's why I said
72,
70.
73 is kind of like the next.
71.
Yeah.
Where you go to
And so to
do
go
half.
from where we are and add almost 30 more
Right.
would maybe be a challenge.
Well, to tell you the truth, the reason why I even started looking. at all
Are we
this-
back on now? We probably should be.
Back in the meeting.
We never turned off the recording.
Oh, we did.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the reason why I really started looking at this is because of the grades. The grades of this school, K through 8, are not very good. So if you take a look at to me, I think it's narrowed down to the curriculum, not, if you have 3 grades, so you have 1 teacher, 3 grades, the teacher has to teach 3 different grade levels of curriculum.
Mhm.
So if you ask Jennifer, she only had 2 grades last year, big difference. So so that's why I was looking at trying to get one more teacher. If you put 1 more teacher in, now instead of 3 teachers, you have 4. Leave K first and second, leave that alone. Everybody else, now you have 2 grades, 2 different years of curriculum, which is, it's just a lot easier.
There's an advantage, but there's also a disadvantage, because can I ask Jennifer? You have two grades this year,
Last year.
last year,
Yeah.
this last year. Did you probably not have 3 levels of, the student levels?
There's in each grade level.
In
there's
each-
3.
And so
levels.
therefore, it kind of outweighs that.
I agree, but still, if you go, if you go 2 grades, it's gonna be less of that than in 3.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
Yes.
So
Right.
really, so with what you're saying is 1 teacher, 1 grade doesn't make as much sense as 1 teacher, 2 grades, which I'm having a hard time believing that. I believe 1 teacher, 1 grade
Yes.
is by far preferable.
Well, I think part of the other challenge that we run into is doing multi-grade.
Right.
Is a skill in and of itself.
Oh, sure.
And it's not,
It
like,
is,
there's
yeah.
This
the
is
number
true.
of teachers who
Yeah.
can do multi-grade well. Right, is a much smaller subset than.
When my kids came to school here, the older kids helped teach the younger kids. So,
Mhm. Right. Mhm.
I totally agree with that. And I'm not. What I'm trying to do is find the best way to get the grade level up of the school. That's really what I'm after. I'm trying to figure out what would be the best system for these kids to learn it.
Mhm.
And for the teachers to teach at. So,
Right.
if you have, I think if you have 4 teachers versus 3 teachers, you're gonna be way better off. I think, and that's why I believe leaving the K first, second, 1 teacher for those 3 grades right there. I think you'd be better off leaving that there versus leaving 6, 7, and 8. Or somewhere,
Mhm.
see what I'm saying?
I see what you're saying.
So,
Yeah.
really, that was my whole goal of kind of looking into all this.
Yeah,
And I believe you can get a grant to put that trailer out there. It's just a matter of, finding the person to write the grant. Might take a year, might take 2 years.
maybe that's a good thing to look in and look at our principal.
So
person.
let's move on to,
Yeah.
part of our public hearing is a testimony from the public. So they've heard us talk a lot about the budget, the future budget, the current budget. What does the public have to say?
I'm Irving Circle, the bus driver. So as far as what Kristen said about a new bus. I think it's probably above 170,000 now, because I think when we bought our bus a couple of years ago, it was 167,000. So I think, it's probably just knowing what parts and stuff is costing now. I think you're probably closer to 180,000.
Oh, like 2030, maybe?
Yeah, so anyway, it's a lot. And then I had a question. If for some reason we sell a spare bus, does that money go into the transportation fund for a new school bus when the time arises that we need a new school bus?
It's a good question. I don't know. Do you know that, Eric?
I would imagine so. I imagine they
I-
come
I-
out of stuff out there.
I think so. I think.
Yeah,
it has to.
I think
I think
it goes
has
through
to.
the
Yeah.
disposal process and,
Yeah.
we have to put it up for bid but I think it goes
Right,
back into the
but I think,
transportation.
yeah,
fund.
So,
that's the way it used to
so
be, I
how does
believe.
that
Right,
work?
yeah.
Do they take money out each month. Like they're put in the budget for a school bus. And then after 10 years, they roll it out.
Kind of, yeah, but it's based on what we. So we get an amount that's based on what we've bought, that's based on the depreciation of what we've bought. So if we don't buy something, then we don't depreciate.
Right.
And so it ends up being funded, but it ends up being funded in a delay.
Right.
And so as what we've paid for is depreciating, we get paid for that year of use or that year of depreciation, and that's getting put into the fund to build up for our next,
For the next.
for our next purchase.
And bus two is no longer in the depreciation schedule. And that's when we ordered the new bus, is when that one dropped.
Right. Because once it was fully depreciated, we also won't be getting a depreciation value
Right,
for
yeah.
using it.
Yeah,
And it probably gets old enough that we have to be repairing more.
And if it just sits there and doesn't get used, then it still depreciates.
Right,
So
although it's good to have a spare bus, but.
Yeah, but the depreciation schedule's over, it just sits there and rots if we don't use it.
Right.
We need to sell it, you
Mhm.
know, so,
Yeah, or alternate
right,
it in,
yeah,
just like a car you wouldn't just let a spare car sit.
yeah.
You use
Thanks,
it that
Barbie.
way.
yeah.
Any other questions? Comments, Greta?
I'm not sure this has much to do with the actual budget, but it was something you were talking about, was that Skamania's increased enrollment. And I think that I know of at least 5 kids from LA that are going there.
Yeah.
So we've lost kids to go to Skamania. I'm hoping, I keep hoping, there's still summer, they'll give me some more time. But, just so that you guys are aware of that, there's a chunk that are leaving. And I know personally, like, there's one kindergartner, like, they're for sure going, and there's one, a 6th grader. The parents are pretty just unhappy with how the board has been operating and how unkind things have been played out. So they feel like we can't have our child in that environment.
Actually, those 5 have been going there since before this board started playing things out, as you said. I talked to Milt, quite a while ago, and he told me, I got 5 kids from Skamania, from Mill A.
How is the board operating?
What's that?
How is the board operating? What are we doing that's so wrong?
Well, I'm not the parent that I would personally, like, can we just be kind and
I
treat each
think we
other
are.
kindly?
I think we are, but I think we, like the tone of the earlier meetings, everything, we've had a bunch of interactions. And those interactions are not going to feel good to people all the way around. And there were there were several things going on. We can't say there hasn't been any. But we can't change what happened months ago, weeks ago, any of that. We have to look forward. And I think we are.
And we've also lost students due to math scores, so
Yeah, we've lost students due to
Yeah,
scores,
so
we've lost
we're
students due
doing the
to.
best we can to move forward with a positive attitude.
We
And
can
let's
all
keep
stop
it
bringing it up,
positive
too.
and not bring up the past so much. Because we don't want to go forward with a positive attitude. That's my personal viewpoint. Let's not talk about the past. We did the best job we could. If somebody thought they could do better sitting here, that's fine, but let's go forward, okay?
Sounds good.
Let's go forward. Okay, any other comments on the budget? We need to get this budget move forward because
Yep.
actually Kristen's already sent it to the state. Her deadline to get it to the state was a couple of days ago.
Oh. Mhm.
That doesn't mean we can't modify it by any means.
But we
If
don't wanna
choose
have
to
to.
make a change, we can do that. So are there any other public comments? All right, so if you turn to I believe it's the 5th page in the packet of the new budget I gave you. If you turn to that page, it says page 5 of 138. Now you know why you didn't get 138 pages, but you only got 20. But, so if you turn to page 5 of the fiscal year 24-25 budget packet I gave you, you will see on page 5, you'll see the financial summary. And over on the right, the 24-25 budget, where the total revenue is $2,629,375,000. I didn't say that right, but anyway, and then you'll see the expenditures, $2,620,195,000. So those are the income and expenditure dollar amounts. And then below that, you see the general fund balance going down by a little less than 200, about 191 or so. So if we move that money
200.
during this year, that's the impact to the general fund budget. So those numbers are transferred and are in the resolution. We have to adopt this budget for next year by resolution. So the adoption of the 24-25 budget, a resolution of the Board of Directors of Mill Lake School District, determining fund appropriations, adopting the 24-25 budget, and the 4-year budget plan summary and the 4-year enrollment projections that Kristen showed us. And then I don't know if you want me to read this whole thing, but it quotes the RCWs for adopting a budget. And then it goes down and it shows that the general fund budget, $2,620,195,000, which it matches the one I just showed you on the page out of there. Then the general fund transfer to capital projects of 200,000, which actually won't take place until we tell her to do that, but that's in the budget.
Okay.
And then the transportation vehicle fund, 73,849, the capital projects fund, 800,000, and the student body fund of 19,050. So those are the numbers that she projected on the screen and told us about for each one of those budget categories. And then the board hereby adopts the 24-25 budget and the 4-year budget plan summary and the 4-year enrollment projection and appropriations as fixed and determined, which are on file with the district and incorporated herein. Would you like to, I see you thumbing through. Do you want to read it first?
No, I think
I'm good.
I'm good.
Yeah, I'm good too.
And there's also a certification page in the 138 pages, which I will sign, but not till after the resolution, of course.
I move we adopt.
A second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Okay, the motion is to adopt the resolution, to adopt the budget, as I just kind of explained there. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No, it passes unanimously. Okay. Looks like Eric's gonna sign it there,
Is it the wrong one?
huh? That's the only one I've got, so.
I just figured I'd sign it and send it on down.
So I think that our 4-year plan is something that we might want to keep on our agenda for, kind of continuously, because I think it's really important to us. And the big thing where it's going to play out is once we get a new leadership structure in place and we get our new teachers in place, then we're going to have a better idea of expenditures for next year, which will help us continue to plan the future years. And we're talking about improvements. We've got this potential of a grant. I don't know what the status of that is yet. And the options, I think we'll be in a better position to have further discussions along that line. All right, thank you.
Yes, I believe we're already, there's already a grant that's in the process right now for another building.
Yes, Bob has put us in for a grant.
Yeah.
A facilities improvement grant,
So it's just a matter of,
but that doesn't mean we're going to get it.
I thought it was a whole bunch of different improvements that,
Well, it's a
That-
facilities wide, and he did a walkthrough with a gentleman from ESD.
yeah, I
And
was here
so
that
there is,
day,
there's no details, it's just, right now, it's a very broad,
but it very encompassing.
that's in
Yeah.
process.
Mhm.
Um,
Well, we don't know if we'll get it this year or at all.
Yeah, yeah,
Or
we
next
don't,
year, yeah,
we don't
But
know
it's just
that
something
yet.
that, you know. keep in
No, no,
mind to look at.
absolutely.
We should challenge, we went through and did all the different, like, here's what it looked at different levels. But we should challenge our assumptions and take another look, because
Yeah.
obviously if we can do 4 teachers in a way that made sense.
Oh,
that
gosh, yeah.
Yeah. Hit us.
You'd always
if,
wanna
like,
do that.
That'd be 14 kids a classroom at 55 got us there. If we really got another 100,000 revenue, I think our costs go up more than that, but somewhere in that neighborhood, it would be
They,
interesting to
they
see.
go up, yeah, there's a lot more than just the
Yeah,
teacher.
there's expenses that go
Well,
along with it, so.
Right.
There. I mean, you realize how much benefits can go up.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
On top of the salary.
All of it, but it's still worth,
it's
it's still worth,
good
the-
way-
it's
oh,
still
yeah,
worth
it's
challenging
worth
ourselves,
looking
going
at.
back and looking at it,
Mhm.
because.
But I'm there's just a lot more than just the teacher salary.
Oh, yeah.
Sure.
Okay, so,
I might not wanna get rid of that second bug.
because that's. So did we get as far as we felt we could on the interview process? I will try to keep you up to date with everything, please, just, we won't have discussions via email, but you can tell me something like, I'm gonna be gone this week, or I'd like to help with this part of it.
So. We don't have this on here. You took this out. I said I would
I know,
I would send my rewording of it. I emailed it to everybody at the board.
okay,
That's not a private discussion. I emailed it to you while we were sitting here, so we all have what my
Oh.
suggested rewording
Okay.
is. And so this part of this meeting.
that's
That's
great,
public
thanks,
record.
Eric, I appreciate that. Okay, so now we go on to the 23-24 budget update. And I believe everybody has a packet in front of you of information. So this one is, it's the month of June, not. And so we have approved a few things that'll be happening in July. Does anybody have any questions about the current budget status as of the end of June?
And looks good, I mean, percentage wise, it looks great, but. And we get more coming in and. the two.
Our next one's going to be real important. It'll show the payout for our superintendent. It will show the ESSER funds being fully expended.
Mhm.
So the only thing that really kind of is up in the air, and I really think that, I don't know how much you've looked at this, but I think it probably behooves us to wait on the kiln until we see the expenses for July coming in. And how that's going to impact us, because there are going to be a few things there that, like the payout and that kind of stuff.
Did we even find out if that was reasonable to?
Okay, so
do
what
an
we found
installation
out, the
like that?
kiln request, it's the next thing on the agenda, because it is part of the possible part of the budget. Tim says that he has space in the garage to put a kiln. And Candy says she can live with that being in the garage. He says there's a couple things that would make it work better. And one, I'm not sure I'll explain it totally right, but you might be able to correct me, Barbie, but he's talking about putting in a man door instead of one of the garage doors. Have you heard that? Have you had that?
We've been talking about that since I got up here, having a man door, but, where he'd need to put it is where all the electrical stuff comes into the bus barn. Unless he did take out the big door, but he uses the big door a lot for his tractor getting it in and out. So I was just wondering having that out in the bus barn. Our buses are in there, what if it malfunctions or something, what's it gonna do to our buses?
And so I just don't think that we've got it totally resolved. He says that he can create the space. He thinks he can make it work, but with kids going in and out, he'd like to have a man door. And so just exactly how all that would work. and, you know, what the timeline would be getting that done.
Yeah,
And then the kiln also includes a wheel and something else, and the art room space is very, very limited.
Mhm.
I think we might be better off waiting for a little while till we have some more answers on facilities, for example, that we've been talking about, number of students, for example.
right. One of the things I would be concerned about, and maybe Tim's already thought of that, is for that section of the garage to have a wall put in. So when kids are out there, they're not around the buses.
Yeah,
I look around the buses when I get in them, but you know, kids, if it's getting close to time for school, get out and I have to move the bus.
Yeah.
I don't wanna be worried about somebody being out there. It's supposed to be with the kiln and here they are horsing around under my bus. I could never live with something like that.
I think that's a real
Yeah.
good, a real good point to bring up, because no matter how many times we count heads, kids are kids, depending on the
quick.
age, of course, but even at any age.
Yeah,
Do you guys understand? It's still not really clear to me. So this is a course that was planned and partnered with. Is there a timeline? Cause I don't know does, like, are kids like registered for this?
I don't
So-
think there's a.
So here's what Kendi said. In hopes to support a dual credit PCIA ceramics 1 class. We will need at least the minimum amount of equipment and supplies for a ceramics lab. So that is what she's hoping for. But as far as I know, it is not established yet.
Okay.
And she says each year the clay lab will need some support, but the kiln is the greatest expense for and is essential piece of equipment for this if she's going to have this PCIA ceramics 1 class.
Yeah, I don't remember exactly, I saw some of those emails from Candy too, but I believe she had that, the courses were approved by Kayleen and by the college. But I think that she's planning on them happening, and PTO is willing to help, you know, with some of the cost of this. I just can't do the structure and the, I don't know, like the.
Right, we can't approve it until we understand the scope of the project, but we can continue to support getting us to the point of understanding the
Right,
scope of
and-
the project.
right.
We
And-
do have a good list and alternates for the equipment itself.
Right, but we still
But
don't,
we don't know.
we haven't had an electrician out to verify our electrical costs. We
Well,
don't
and
put it in
I
the wall.
think Tim has
Did
the
he?
answer on electric.
He did, okay.
Yeah,
I don't,
but I think the issue is the location and the safety.
And that was my concern. I
Yeah.
was gonna bring
And-
that up, is that not just the buses being around them, but the other bus-related stuff.
yeah,
You know,
my office is
all
out there.
the, yeah,
Barbie, is it reasonable or unreasonable to ask you and Tim to kind of get together and look at what the possibilities are, what might have to happen to make it safe?
Yeah, we could do that. I know in the one section, we call it Tim's section. That's where I turn on the fuel pump, that's where the light switches are, that's so. He would have to move all that. I mean, there's a lot to it, if he thinks he can move it, because I would want a wall there, you know, for safety, so yeah, Tim and I should talk about it, and we could get back to you on what.
Yeah, and he said he wanted a man door. Go ahead, Greta.
We've been wanting that for a long time.
Do you remember if she said students would be using the kiln, or would she just go out there and put the things out? I don't remember that. That would make a difference. We don't, we don't.
yeah, if they didn't have to be out there, that makes
I
a
was
big
gonna
difference.
ask that too.
Right now.
Yeah.
Hopefully he lives that.
You know, can they just build a shed out there?
But
There's lots of land out there.
You're at a whole.
Well, you'll have to have heat in it.
Cinder walls, so.
You know, she doesn't say that in this, Greta.
Okay.
But I do believe that she mentioned that she could take things out there. My concern was, you know, we have a lot of inclement weather.
Yeah.
And so I think that she might have mentioned. You know, I don't know for sure, but I think she did say something about she could probably take everything out there. If
Yeah, I
kids
don't think-
couldn't go out. I remember her
I
saying
don't
that.
remember her saying anything about the kids going out. there.
They're
But-
building it, but she would fire it.
Yeah, I mean, and that's what, like I said, when Mrs. Farrell was teacher here and she had her kiln in the school. She's the one that handled, that stuff.
But Jessica just brought something up. If it's a college required class, I mean, not required, but a college class,
Eligible.
would the
Yeah.
students be required
To do the firing of it?
Yeah,
to do
because
the
the- each college has.
Oh,
Yeah, they
well,
have
that's a
certain
really
things
good
you
point
have
that
to
we need
do.
to. We need to know that.
Okay, so,
They were talking about, firing it up the night before too. So they wanna fire this thing up the evening before. It'll take all night to warm up before they start
And
Really?
putting stuff in it, right?
Oh, I
you
didn't-
ask the high school-
I
the
didn't-
current high schoolers?
I didn't remember that
Have you
part.
guys asked the current high
Go right
schoolers?
ahead.
That one of the previous art teachers,
The
when we
students are
had
even interested in taking.
doing
it.
pottery, she
Much
just didn't
noise.
take it somewhere else to get it fired.
What are you saying?
yeah,
If
and,
the
and
students are.
There-
there are a lot of schools that do that, but now that, if we're talking PCIA, that might be a little different. I think this is a good point about to get the credits.
Yeah.
How involved do they have to be?
Why-
Right, yeah, I think there's a lot of questions we need answered before we can.
Yeah.
Wanna
I don't know.
approve any money.
Well, I looked at the electrical out there and you're looking at $3,000 to $4,000 just to fix the electrical. So you could hook anything up. That welding outlet that you have right there that's below the panels, there's no fuse to it at all. So if you plug anything into it, like a kiln, and fire it up the night before and then walk away, you're just asking for trouble.
Well,
Is that a sub breaker?
and there,
No, it's not on a breaker at all. There's nothing feeding. The wire comes straight in from the transformer, comes up in, and it's in an 1.5 inch metal
From the
conduit.
transformer?
well, and it has to be in the kiln for many hours. Yeah,
Right.
well, more hours than somebody is here continuously at the school.
So that,
Sounds like maybe the
that's why I
garage
say,
is
you know,
not a good
that's-
idea.
you're
It
looking-
doesn't sound like it.
well, you,
It may be, it may be not, but
Yeah.
we need somebody
We
to
just-
answer these questions.
we just-
You
we
know
have
what
a
I
lot
mean?
of-
Like, it's not our job to answer these questions.
Yeah, we have a
We
lot
need
of
somebody to give
questions.
us the answers and we'll question their answers.
Yeah,
Let's
right.
get that principal on board.
Yeah, right.
No,
Yeah, anyway,
this is the kind of stuff I've done for 36 years.
Yeah.
Answer questions like this. I've put in stuff like this
mhm,
for 36 years. I can tell you anything and everything about that stuff right now.
yeah,
I went out and I looked at it.
it doesn't sound like you,
Tim asked me
Yeah.
to go look at it. What it really comes down to is what the fire marshal and your electrical inspector is going to let you get away with. That's what it comes down to.
mhm,
What the 1.5 inch conduit, steel conduit that it's in, it's a 1-aught service, comes in, loops, goes into a panel. It's not connected to anything in that, loop comes down, goes into another panel, and then comes down and it feeds a welding outlet, a 240 welding outlet. That's what it feeds. The problem is, the big problem is that 1.5 inch metal conduit. By today's code, it's not enough, it needs to be at least a 2 inch to dissipate heat. An 1.5 inch conduit
it's
is
just a
not,
danger,
it is.
so,
It-
yeah,
It would be okay if you're welding and you're welding for a half an hour. It's not a constant weld, it's not a constant draw on the power. The problem with the kiln, you're gonna fire it up,
Constant.
you're gonna sit, and you're gonna walk away. And your kiln is about a 40 amp breaker. You can change that out to and put a breaker in it. And that would probably satisfy your electrical codes. So you might be able to get away with it like that, and that's why I say it's up to the fire marshal and it's up to the electrical inspector what he'll let you get away with.
So we need the fine details so that we have
Yeah,
all of
right.
that, so we
We-
can
we need-
get
yeah.
together with the fire marshal.
Yeah.
If we want to move forward with it in the garage.
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
That's where I would start. And that's what
And
I
it,
told
and it
him.
sounds like there's a whole lot of other issues concerning it being in the garage besides that.
Right,
Or-
yeah.
Right, there's other
Well,
things
kids-
that Tim
if
really
kids are
wants
gonna
to
be
do
out
out
there,
there.
if it's gonna be out there, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the
Where you're
nice thing
able to
about
get
it
to other
out
spots
there
and
where it
things.
is, if it's in a decent weather, you can actually pull the thing out of the garage. And do it out in front, out of the,
It's in the way of the parking lot. If you pull it out,
yeah,
so, cause I have to get around there to get fuel and stuff,
Yeah.
and,
Yeah,
you know,
right,
the teacher's not gonna wanna come to me and say, okay, when do you need to fuel, you know, so I can pull it out, it's just,
yeah,
you can't have it out
yeah,
there.
there is a fuel tank right there, so that'd be.
yeah, lot of questions.
We have, okay, but let's not drop the project. Let's
No.
do the best we can
Let's move.
and just continue to gather information and, look at alternative locations as well. Is probably what we're gonna have to do. Okay, so let's move on. Did we had any more, comments on the update of the current budget? So we'll, move on with that, I guess. We're back to next public comment again. We've probably been having a lot of public comment.
Skip the cat.
You,
I have some, it's just kind of questions that I want verified, cause the end of the summer's coming, you know, we have a month left. Do you know when the all staff meetings and trainings are before school starts? I know the teachers come back the 21st.
Teachers come back the 21st, that's right. I don't know any other information on what's gonna happen during those first 5 days.
Okay. And then, one of the things Lisa and I were talking about, and I think you had brought it up, Anita, that at the beginning of each school year, maybe the school board members should get a background check, not through ESD, but just a simple one, because you might be in the school with the students and it might be a good idea. And we have to do the background checks once a year. And, so Lisa brought it to my attention. I just have never really done them until I done yours.
Well, and so background checks are not required for board of directors, but I asked to have one done of myself because I'm not only in the school a lot, I'm accessing personnel files. And I thought that it was very essential that I be treated just like any other new person coming in. And so I figured it, filled out all the application and forms for a background check. If the board continues after we have a new principal on board, hopefully we'll be making a decision right away about the superintendent role. But if the board continues as superintendent, maybe that's a good idea, but it would have to be a voluntary thing, don't you think? Because it's not required of board of directors to have that background check done. But if we're going to have an active role at school when the students are here, it might be a good idea.
yeah.
But I think
sounds-
you already did a background check on me, right?
We gotta do it once a year, at the beginning of each school year or throughout, when you know, like volunteers, there's some that just do the end of the school year field trip. So I do their background check then, but the other volunteers, they fill it out at the beginning of the school year and I run them and they're good for the school year, but each school year we need to do a new one.
And Barbie, it's just the one that you take the driver's license and you run it. That way,
Yes.
it's not
It's
fingerprints
just-
and all that stuff.
Yeah, it's just a simple one. I send it in state patrol and I usually get an answer back. Within a few minutes, a day at the most, depending on, you know, how many school districts.
Yeah,
we
so
have.
this is not the FBI one.
Right.
Well,
No,
you just
right.
did one to me and I had to go to Vancouver to ESD.
Well, that's
And
because
do
you're
the-
driving. a
That
bus.
was fingerprints.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so that's
Well,
just,
I know that was fingerprint, but that was for a background check.
They
That was
call,
the-
it is, but ESD has a different phrase for it. They don't call it background check at E ESD.
Yeah, so for bus drivers, I can do them here, because I've done bills and I did our new substitute bus driver that we have, I did his, and then they have to go down and do the fingerprints and stuff, so.
So we could probably voluntarily do that, or we can
I think
request
it's
the
a
board
good
do it.
idea
It's not
because
a,
I think
yeah.
we're gonna have students, we're gonna be, maybe be more involved. We don't know. We don't know, but you know, it's a good
It would
idea, but
really
it
make
is a volunteer
parents
thing.
feel comfortable because they say, you know, all these parents or people in the school, do they have a background check? Do they, you know,
Yeah.
and, I know when my kids were in school, I asked that same question about people coming in, do you do background checks on them? So I would, as a parent, I'd feel more comfortable.
Yeah, I don't think we can require it of our fellow board members or by
No,
resolution,
it's not a requirement.
but we can
because-
encourage each other to do it, yeah.
Yeah, why,
Doesn't
yeah,
matter to me.
why not? Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not in a hide.
Yeah.
Right.
Did we already cover number 5, Anita, on the
Okay,
resolution
so
for?
the resolution, and I sent you that out by email, we don't have to do a specific separate resolution for the,
Okay.
because it's incorporated in the budget.
Okay,
So I did the
Alright.
resolution because I discovered we had not actually done it previously,
Okay.
which when we thought we did, and
Mhm.
so I had it already, and then Kristen said, oh, well, you don't need a separate one.
okay.
It's
So
part of the
just want to
budget.
make sure
Yeah,
that we didn't
right.
need to do more on that.
Thank you, I'm glad you
subject.
did that.
Yeah.
And so, the next on the agenda is an executive session. I would anticipate it won't take us very long, so we're going to adjourn, well, not adjourn, but we're going to go into an executive session at 8:30. We should be out by 8:45. If we don't take too long getting the Zoom, everybody put in a little break room on the Zoom for a while.
And we don't have anybody meeting with us, right?
When we can see each other.
Right, I do like this.
Yeah,
setting,
I
too.
like it.
I
really
agree.
well.
And I kind of like it that we're set in different spots. Here and there.
Would it make sense to like shift the whole thing that way a little bit for the
I think
recording?
it
and stuff?
probably would
Oh,
because,
that-
Even if we stay the same shape,
The
like,
same shape, but we could see the, in the audio.
and then we could put
besides- Yeah,
the
that would work.
the
wouldn't it,
owl like
for-
right here, we'd have room to put it there, and then it would kind of
Oh.
go, instead of focusing on you guys, it would kind of, right?
I didn't move them from where it was for our
Yeah,
round table.
Yeah,
right.
cause then, and then we wouldn't be walking over there to see the screen too.
Right.
We'd be able to see it if somebody's presenting.
Yeah.
So the boards comes back into session at 8:53, I think we did, and welcome back.
It's a recording started, right?
8:57.
8:57 with everyone back in.
100%.
The next item on our budget is consideration of a request for a leave of absence. And in consulting our attorney, he advises us that the board may grant or deny. I recommend that the board make the determination based on its best interest.
And can we can still grant this, Anita, because even if if the person isn't currently under contract?
Yes, because the
The request
Right,
was made
before-
prior to.
Yeah.
Right,
On the last day, yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
You didn't get it in on time. But you want to put it up for a vote?
Does it require a motion to
I assume it would,
So the
grant or to
chair
deny?
would,
either one. I
Would
would
both
assume.
require a
It's gotta be-
motion?
I don't know.
the chair would entertain a motion of determining in the best interest of the district regarding this request.
So how do you want to make that?
She wants you to.
I recommend the board make deny the request based on the best interest of the district.
Okay, I'll second it.
Oh, I would tell it how to make it.
That we deny the leave of absence
Based on the best
based
interest.
on the best interest of this school.
I better write this down. You're probably writing it down too.
Yes. And I should.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, any further discussion?
Yeah, there should be some further discussion, but
Okay,
I mean, The letter we got. Requesting leave.
What day was that letter sent?
It was sent on June,
28.
right?
What was the last day that she,
Was-
what was the last day she could send that letter
June
and
20
make the request?
June 28th.
The 28th was a Friday.
Mhm.
Her
And so
contract actually expired on Sunday.
Right, yeah, but still, the last working day.
Who was supposed to, be the teacher for summer school?
Well, I would prefer that our discussion focus on
The best interest of the school.
this
Well,
best
you,
interest of school
you can
and leave.
prefer all you want, but I'm asking you a simple question.
Well, I was starting to say something, I'm gonna say it, then you can ask me a simple question. And to me. This put us in a really difficult position as a district because. She didn't sign her. Contract and then. Request leave. Which would allow us to view the request as, can we give you leave? Or ask earlier, we're short on teachers. And that's hard, it's putting us in a position where, well, you can grant it to me or I'm gone. And I agree with some of her frustrations, but I also. I feel like we've been put in a really tough spot as a board of directors to. To have this leave request. I'm really torn on this one, but I'm frustrated that's where we are.
I agree. I'm torn as well, but in viewing the best interest of the school, the kids,
Mhm.
you know, it seems like it should be denied.
Yeah, you see, I'm not torn at all about it.
That's okay.
Yeah, I know.
It's a
That's
pretty
fine.
simple choice to me.
Yeah, that's okay.
I know it's okay.
Okay, any other discussion? There's a motion on the floor. Are we ready
Suspense.
for me to call for the vote?
Sure.
Okay, all in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Say nay. Thank you, the motion passed. Next on the agenda is any other old business or updates. And
So I'm
just
assuming that you're gonna be letting her know.
I will.
Yeah.
In fact, I sent her an email and made sure she knew we'd be discussing it tonight. She's on an airplane. I told her I would get back to her.
Okay,
Um,
because I think. I want you, for us to be as courteous as we can and let her know as soon as possible.
I do have one item that is just a real quick little thing, but each year, Professor Van Duzer does a DIG field school, dig, but it must stand for something besides dig, with the Burke Museum and the University of Washington. He's done this every year. It's funded by the Burke Museum and the University of Washington. But each year the district has reimbursed his mileage. And he's asking if the district would again reimburse his mileage. This is part of his professional development. He is actually teaches there. He doesn't participate in whatever it is they do there. Actually, I don't know if they dig.
Yes,
Or
they
not.
do, they do dig.
So
Pardon?
it's,
They do dig.
They do dig, okay.
so it's just
This
him,
is-
this is for just him? Not him and students, but just him?
No, this is part of his professional development.
Okay.
approval That
So
we have
just
given
him.
for, is this the third year? Do you know?
Well, I think he's done it 2 years, so this would be the third.
Yeah, so this is your-
Upcoming year would be
Well,
the
three,
third,
right.
yeah.
This is a continuation of a program he's been involved, for 3 years, and it's part of my professional development. And he's asking for the board again to approve his mileage reimbursement. And so if nobody has any objection, I'll approve
I
it when
think
his request comes in.
I think it's a perfectly reasonable request.
And I wanna say that he has shared with students too. I've taken my class in and he has shared with my kids what he did and the
And I-
pencils that he's brought back.
I have a question. In the past, when he's done it, we have not had a school Suburban. So is that something he would wanna take, is the school Suburban, rather than putting miles on his own vehicle?
That's a good question. It is in Montana.
I could be the driver. But that's kind of what we've got, the Suburban is for.
I will let
teachers
him know that.
to use.
I don't know if he takes his family, and that might be an issue.
Yeah, he
That it might
might,
be not.
but,
Yeah.
we never had the Suburban in the past when he had it, we had the old van and
That's a very good point.
we would.
How do the kids get there?
Well, it's just for him.
It's
just for him. It's professional
So-
development.
Right,
Yeah.
yeah.
And do we
That's the
what do we
question I
do
asked.
for him to
Yeah.
do that? Do we pay him mileage?
Pardon?
Do we pay him mileage on that?
We have always paid it in the past.
Okay.
Yeah, do you wanna, here's his email if you wanna read it there.
I mean, I would,
And he might not wanna take the Suburban, because when you take your own vehicle, you can do what you want in your spare time.
Right.
Where the Suburban, you're.
Better
it's a
stick to the
school.
route.
I don't know
Yeah.
how they stay and what they
yeah, and
eat.
I just,
Yeah,
it just
they
makes sense to
can.
me then, yeah, that we
Pay-
that we would pay him and.
Pay him
and-
mileage.
And
Yeah.
His
Be as
car might
consistent-
get twice the gas mileage too.
that's
What's
right.
that?
I said his car might get twice the gas mileage too.
It may.
Have you looked
Yeah.
at reimbursement?
But we're gonna have a new.
Well, yeah, I know, I know. So that's what I'm saying, you know.
So is there any other business that I've forgotten or that you guys know about?
Let me read this, cause I sent it to you guys an email, and then if you guys are okay, I just said that, I kept your wording almost the same, but my suggestion was, on behalf of the Millay School District 31, I'd like to let you know that the district has retained professional legal services with another firm. I understand you provided our district with legal advice for a few years now. You've been a reliable and appreciated advisor for our superintendent, Bob Rogers, in the district. We thank you for this. We do anticipate that this may significantly reduce or eliminate the hours we'll be sending to your firm in the near future. Mr. Rogers has been very complimentary of your services, and we may need your services at some point in the future. We appreciate the work you performed historically. We wish you the very best, Tracy.
Sounds like an excellent letter. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
So if we just send that, then we may never use her again, but we keep the door open if we need some kind of conflict or something else.
Okay.
So if you wanna put that in your letterhead and send it off,
School letterhead, yeah.
that's what I mean,
Yeah,
like
you
what
can
you were
just
doing
email
before.
it to me.
I sent it to everyone on the
Oh,
board,
okay.
which is why I wanted to read it, so it's
Okay.
not private communication.
All right, anything else, everybody? So right now, our next meeting is not until August 19th. However, depending on how the interview schedule and all that comes together, we may have to have a special meeting so that more than 3 board members can participate, or 3 or more board members can participate. So any further information you want to pass to me on trying to get this all put together? Whew, what a job.
Yeah.
All right,
I'm glad you're doing it.
thank you very much.
Yeah.
Meeting's adjourned.
Thank you.
All right.